Hello XTERA family. It's always such an honor to gather with all of you. Driven, ambitious, united by a vision much bigger than just ourselves. Let me start with a question. Where were you 6 months ago in your personal and financial journey? And where are you today? Take a moment to think. If you feel proud of your growth, type yes in the chat right now. When we look at our community, the answer is clear. We are moving forward, faster, stronger, and with more unity than ever before. Just a few days ago, we had the privilege of welcoming leaders from India to our office in Dubai. And let me tell you, the outcome of those meetings was absolutely stunning. After experiencing the USPs of XTERA and the code, India is just on fire. The excitement, the trust, the vision that was built has set a new benchmark. Now let me highlight what makes XTERA truly unique, our core USPs. 1. Accessibility. Smart algorithm-based strategies for everyone, not just professionals. 2. Transparency. You see everything. No hidden fees, no fine print, just live proven performance. 3. Community. We are not just a fintech platform. We are a movement of like-minded people. 4. Automation and expertise. The system works for you 24/7. You don't need to be an expert. 5. Consistent returns. Our clear goal, 4 to 5% per month. Compounded, not hype, but strategy. We are not chasing trends. We are shaping the future of personal wealth for everyone. And here's the truth. Our way of doing things is without competition. Although we never stop improving, we never stop innovating. That's the XTERA DNA. Now let me remind you of our vision. To become the most trusted and successful platform for millions of people to shape their financial future to success. This isn't just a slogan, this is our mission. And each of you here today is a living, breathing part of that vision. Without you, it doesn't work. With you, we are unstoppable. So let me ask you, do you believe we can reach millions together? If yes, put a thumbs up or type XTERA in the chat. And now, something truly exciting. Inside our XTERA dashboard, within the TTT, the Total Transparency tool, you will soon be able to see your own personal portfolio, how your shares are growing, how your profits are evolving, how your journey with XTERA is moving forward. Isn't that exciting? This is transparency at its maximum. Nothing hidden, nothing complicated, just clarity, simplicity, and full ownership. And no one else is offering this to you. Once this new tool is live, we will host a special webinar to give you the full overview. So here's a question. What will it feel like when you see your growth in real time? How much stronger will your confidence become? That's our mission. To give you the safe feeling you are in the right place with the right people at the right time. And speaking of the right people, I'm thrilled to announce our trainer for today's session, Dominic. Last time he was with us, the feedback was overwhelming. So much value, so much clarity. That's why we invited him back to deliver another powerful session for all of you. So here we are again, ready for deeper knowledge, fresh perspectives and insights that take your mindset, your skills and your confidence to the next level. If you're ready, type ready in the chat right now. Remember, this is not just information, this is transformation. So my friends, here's my challenge for today. 1. Take notes. 2. Share your biggest takeaway in the chat. And 3. Commit to one action step you will implement immediately. Because action is where transformation happens. We are building something extraordinary together. With every step, every tool, every training, we are shaping not just our own future, but the future of millions who dare to dream big with us. Let's keep growing, let's keep believing, let's keep winning together. Let's create a September to remember. And after Dominic's training, you will also have the opportunity to hear from the president of XTERA, Mr. Stephen Paul. So stay tuned. And now, let's welcome Dominic. Dominic, the stage is yours.
Hello everyone, and thank you to the whole team, especially you three, Daniel, Stephen, and Michael. I see you on all fronts, traveling the world to raise essential awareness and help as many people as possible regain control of their resources. So thank you to the team for this warm welcome. Thank you for being here, whether live or watching the replay. What you are doing right now, taking the time to learn, to understand, to make progress, is already a victory. Because we live in a time when no one has any excuses left. Information is there, available, just a click away. But you still need to know what to focus on and how to use that information wisely. So, if you're here today, I sincerely want to congratulate you. You are taking a proactive approach, and that's exactly what we're going to cultivate together in this new training. In our first session, we laid the groundwork. We went over the 5 main keys to financial education together. We talked about the importance of setting goals, building an overall strategy, having the right mindset about money, incorporating timing into decisions, and understanding the markets to navigate them better. That's the first step. It was essential. It allowed us to create a common foundation, a framework for understanding, because when you don't understand the basics, you're building on sand. And today we're going to go further. We're going to move from the why to the how. My goal today is to show you why you should be interested in trading, even if you never plan to become a trader, and above all, how to integrate it intelligently into an overall strategy without spending your nights on it. In reality, trading is a direct connection to economic reality. It's a lever. And a lever can be dangerous or powerful. It all depends on how you handle it. And above all, who you give control to in order to operate this lever. So we're going to dig deeper, refine, and structure things. Because the truth is, a lot of people want results, but few are willing to adopt the mindset necessary to achieve them. And this mindset is what I call the posture of a CIO, a chief executive of your own financial life. I'm going to explain to you why this mindset changes everything. But first, allow me to quickly introduce myself for those who don't know me yet. I've been working in the finance sector for over 25 years. I'm an investor, entrepreneur, and passionate about meaningful finance. Not money for the sake of money, but rather money as a way to live by your own rules. To be free, in fact. After my studies, I had the opportunity to work in the finance sector to train and lead networks of professional advisors. I earned certifications, explored behind the scenes, witnessed mistakes, successes, and sometimes even excesses, and saw the impact of different cultures, European, Anglo-Saxon, and Asian, each approaching finance from different perspectives, yet always in very complementary ways. And I understood one very simple thing. For most of us, traditional education teaches us to work to earn money, but never teaches us how to manage that money wisely. We are not taught how to become financially free. We are trained to be good workers, to trade our time for money without ever being taught how to make that money work for us. And that's when I decided to make financial education my mission. Because I'm convinced that when you understand the rules of the game, you take back control. You stop being a victim and start steering your own course. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. In this session, I'm going to share with you 5 new keys, concrete keys that will help you structure your journey and above all, understand how to integrate trading as a true pillar of performance within an overall financial strategy. I'm not here to sell you dreams. I'm not going to make you believe that you'll become a professional trader in 24 hours. That's not the idea. I'm going to talk to you about this in terms of mindset, method, informed choices, and above all, delegation. Because at some point, when you want to professionalize your management, you have to know how to call on those who know what they're doing, the pros. You don't perform an appendectomy on yourself. You don't fly a plane alone without training. So why would we force ourselves to do it with our own money? Today we're going to talk about management, about logic, about strategy, and I'll do everything I can to make it accessible, smooth, and above all, useful. So get something to take notes with, keep an open mind, and above all, don't compare yourself to others. Everyone starts from where they are, and what matters is making progress. All right, let's get started. First key, understand the financial life cycle, because that's the foundation of everything. If I ask you what your most valuable resource is, you might answer money. In reality, the true resource that we all have in equal measure is time. We all have 24 hours in a day, and what we do with that time is what will determine our financial future. At first, most people trade their time for money. That's what we call a job. And for many people, their main financial goal stops there. I work, so I earn a living. But that equation is incomplete. The real financial cycle begins the moment you understand that the money you earn can also work for you. That's the real switch. Step 1, from income to capital. When you receive income, whether you're an employee, self-employed, an entrepreneur, or even living off investments, that income does two things. First, it covers your living expenses, your rent, your bills, your leisure activities. Second, it helps you build up savings with what's left over. We're going to set some money aside. It's this savings that becomes your financial ammunition, your leverage. It's this savings over time that will form what we call a critical mass. In other words, it's everything you own minus everything you owe, your debts. As soon as you have some savings sitting idle, for example, 1,000 euros, 5,000 euros, 50,000 euros, well, you have a first question to ask yourself, how do I put this money to work? Because if you don't give it a purpose, your savings will literally melt away. And by the way, your money can take on several roles, several purposes. For example, part of your critical mass, your capital, can have a defensive purpose, which is simply to deal with life's uncertainties, a sum that, in a way, ensures your financial security. Whereas another part of your capital can have a more aggressive purpose, for example. That part is meant to seek out the highest possible returns. In other words, you can cover these two objectives, which are diametrically opposed but complementary. And in fact, that's the best thing to do. Use your money to meet several of your personal goals. So here's a figure I'd like to share with you: inflation. The average inflation in Europe between 2021 and 2023 was over 4% per year. That means if you leave 10,000 euros in a non-interest-bearing account for 3 years, your real purchasing power has dropped by nearly 12%. In other words, you did nothing but you lost money. What I'm suggesting here isn't to become a finance fanatic. It's to understand that every euro sitting idle could be working for you. And the earlier you start, the more time will work in your favor. That's what's called the snowball effect. Imagine you're 25 years old and you start investing 300 euros a month. Well, with an average return of 7%, which is what the American market has done over the past 20 years with stocks. Well, by the time you're 60, you'll have nearly 600,000 euros. Now, if you wait 10 years and only start at 35, well, with the same effort, you'll have just 275,000 euros. Same monthly effort, but half as much in the end. Why? Because time is an exponential force. To illustrate all this, I invite you to revisit or discover the work of Robert Kiyosaki. He's the one who explains that in life we go through several stages, several roles. You can start out as a salaried employee working for someone else. Sometimes you continue as a self-employed worker. And then you can become an entrepreneur, that is, have interests in several businesses, and finally become financially independent, living as an investor off the passive income from your capital. For him, it's this last stage, the investor, that truly allows you to be free. And what's fascinating is that today, especially with the internet, younger generations can move through these stages much more quickly. Online business, investing, diversification, there are opportunities everywhere. But for that to happen, you still need to understand this life cycle so you don't get lost along the way. The ultimate goal is to gradually transition from the left quadrant to the right quadrant, moving from a situation where you primarily trade your valuable time for financial compensation to the quadrant where your accumulated money diligently works and generates income for you. And guess where trading fits in? Well, in the investor quadrant, of course. But be careful, trading is not a magic solution. It's one possible building block in a broader strategy. What we should have been taught as early as middle school, well, is this cycle. I'm going to work in order to save. Then I'll be able to invest part of what I save to generate my critical mass, my passive income, and live off the returns from my capital. This cycle should be displayed in every classroom. A phase in your life where you work to earn money and reach the critical mass of capital that will then be enough to finance the lifestyle you've chosen. That's why I start with this key point. Because even before talking about stocks, indexes, trading bots, or ETFs, you need to understand one thing. Your money is a resource, and like any resource, it needs to be directed. It needs to have a purpose. And if that purpose is to make you free, then you need to think like a strategist. But that's not something we're taught. We're taught to work, to consume, to borrow, but not to build a strategy that would lead you to freedom and then allow you to use your time as you wish. The truth is, if you understand this cycle, you're already one step ahead of 90% of people because you'll start making conscious choices, seeing your money as a tool, not as an end in itself. And that's what this key is meant to help you understand. You can't achieve financial independence by staying stuck at the stage. I work to earn. At some point, your money needs to take over. And for that, you need to think in terms of resources, leverage, and strategies. In the upcoming keys, we'll talk about how to give your capital a role and how to make it work without necessarily doing everything yourself. For that, we're going to talk about how to give you back your power. Because real power isn't about being able to do everything by yourself. Real power is about knowing how to steer things intelligently and orchestrate delegation according to your needs. So, as we've just seen in this first key, you've understood that your money is a resource and that it can or should work for you. But the real question now is, for what purpose? What's the point of making your capital work for you if you don't know where you're starting from and you don't know where you want to go? Well, that's where the second key comes in, clarifying your level of progress on your own financial journey. Because you don't manage your investments the same way depending on whether you're in survival mode or in a phase of expansion. It's true that we talk a lot about financial freedom, but in reality, that word can mean everything and nothing at all. What matters is to redefine it for yourself, personally. And for that, I suggest a simple scale with 3 levels. The first level is the first step, financial security. Here, the only goal is to no longer be stressed at the end of the month, to earn more than you spend, cover your expenses, maybe put a little money aside, but above all, to sleep at night and have a solid foundation. Honestly, it sounds simple when you put it like that, but in reality, it's already a milestone, a real victory for many people. According to a 2022 study by INSEE, nearly 35% of French people cannot handle an expense of more than 1,000 euros. So, reaching this level of security is far from insignificant. The second stage is the step towards financial independence. Second level, but a change in paradigm. Here, it's no longer your physical efforts that should be funding your life. It's your passive income. It's what your money earns for you. Maybe rental income, stock dividends, or investment interest. The goal is for your passive income to fully cover your monthly needs. It's not necessarily about being rich. It's already about no longer depending on a salary or a job to be sure you have enough money at the end of the month. And for many, that's true freedom. Not needing to work even if you can absolutely choose to keep working, but not having that necessity. The era we live in creates a lot of confusion about this because we're bombarded with solicitations from all sides. And it's sometimes hard to separate expenses that are tied to our real needs from those that are tied to our wants. That being said, our era is probably the one that offers the most options for achieving that famous financial independence within a reasonable time frame. But you still need the mindset not to give in to temptation and make unnecessary consumer purchases before reaching this all-important goal. The third level, the most inspiring one, is the famous financial freedom. This is where you have a choice. The choice to manage your time, your projects, your relationships. The choice to invest yourself in causes that truly matter to you. The moment when you are no longer limited at all. This is where you start thinking about legacy, passing things on, and making an impact. You can fund ambitious projects, help your loved ones, make commitments without wondering, what are we going to eat at the end of the month? When you earn more than you spend on a regular basis, you can then afford all kinds of extras. That should be the ultimate goal for each of us, to focus on growth. So what if we asked ourselves this question now? Where do I stand today? And above all, where do I want to go? Am I at the security stage? I earn more than I spend. I have a positive budget, maybe 1 or 3 months of cash reserves in advance. Independence. My passive income covers all or part of my needs or freedom. I have the means to finance all my desires in life. I have annuities, I have capital, I can fund my needs and projects. I remember a Tony Robbins seminar a few years ago, where at one point he had us do a pretty simple exercise. He asked us, exactly how much do you need to be financially independent? And that's when I realized I had never done the calculation. For me, it was vague, kind of like a distant dream. But as soon as I started putting numbers to it, everything changed. Because if you tell yourself, for example, that you need 2,500 euros to cover the essentials in your lifestyle, and you know that 5% annual return on a capital of 600,000 euros can generate those 2,500 euros per month, then you are turning a fantasy into a goal. And the good news is that a goal can be built. So I can start planning a reliable strategy to reach the critical mass of 600,000 euros in the shortest possible time. All that remains is to identify the right levers to make better use of my time and money and achieve this goal under the best possible conditions. Honestly, that day I felt a sense of relief, a way to regain, in a sense, some control. Because suddenly my goals were no longer distant or vague. They became concrete, measurable, and achievable. So have fun, ask yourself the right questions, and put real numbers to your goals. No vague dreams like, I want to be free, but real numbers. How much do you need per month to live comfortably? What amount of capital would generate that? What are the levers to build up that capital? There's no need to evaluate or judge yourself. Just stay clear-headed, because depending on where you are, you don't need the same tools. That's why today we're talking about an overall strategy, not just technical solutions. With trading, well, there's a connection. Trading is not an end goal. Trading is a lever. That's where this second key becomes essential. If you are, for example, in the security phase, trading can be risky. So if you go for it, do so moderately and with caution. Get some practice. If, on the other hand, you are aiming for financial independence, then trading can help you boost a strategic portfolio that seeks performance, perhaps a level of performance that's harder to achieve with traditional investments. But you need to stay clear-headed about the risks of loss. And if you are in the freedom phase, then you can use trading as a tool for absolute performance and effective diversification. What really matters isn't trading as a technique, it's that trading is simply a tool. What matters is the role and the place you give to trading within your overall strategy. So, to conclude this second key point, financial freedom is not some magical destination. It's a logical evolution, step by step. And the good news is that if you make it a serious goal, just like anything else in life, each step can be reached within a set time frame. Provided, of course, that you know where you are, where you want to go, and that you give yourself the right tools to get there. And that's exactly what we'll look at in the next key point. We're going to talk about how to make your money work for you intelligently. How to become an active participant in the economy rather than just a spectator. Yes, the third key, investing in the economy, is a must. Because at this point, you've understood two essential things. Your capital is a resource, and you need a clear direction based on your financial level. Now, the logical question is, how do I actually put this capital to work? We're going to talk about a habit you should develop, which has nothing to do with playing the stock market or making quick moves. It's about investing in the real economy. Because to be direct, today, if you let your money sit idle, it's working against you. Why? Because of inflation. We've already talked about inflation. It's simply the fact that prices go up. And if your savings just sit there, they lose value every year. So doing nothing isn't neutral. It's choosing to slowly become poorer. In other words, it's setting yourself a negative goal. To get straight to the point then, there is indeed one recommendation that has always been more profitable over time. You have to invest in the real economy. Except that's easy to say, but not necessarily easy to do. Why the real economy? Because it's the engine that creates value in the world, that follows trends, that matches what people really want. In other words, the market. And it does so in all circumstances. When you invest in the economy, whether it's through a company, a project, a bond, or an index, you're putting yourself on the side of those who are in a position to benefit from growth. So there's an interesting phrase to remember. It's said that consumers finance growth while investors reap the rewards. And the economy doesn't just mean the stock market. Everything that generates activity, wealth, jobs, production, that's all part of it. To simplify, there are three main ways to do this. First step, or first major category, taking part in entrepreneurial risk. This is the world of stocks. You become a co-owner of a company or an asset. You take on part of the risk and part of the profits. It's not reserved just for professionals. This is the very foundation of the stock market. That is to say, I won't be working in a company myself, but I will invest my money in these businesses and therefore experience the ups and downs and benefit from the opportunities. But there's a second, gentler idea, which is to finance the economy, to play the role of the bank in a way. Here we're talking about bonds. You lend your money to a government, a company, or a local authority, and in return, you receive interest. It's more stable, more prudent, and it's the backbone of many portfolios. You can also ride the trends. That's when you get into a more opportunistic approach, betting on rises, falls, and market movements. It's a bit more intense, more speculative, and this is where trading often comes into play. So, the major asset classes, we can mention a few of them in the following table. We'll see, for example, that stocks generate between 6 and 10%, but over an average period of 10 years. Bonds are more moderate, yielding 2 to 5% per year. Real estate, 3 to 7% per year. Commodities are much more volatile, with a defensive role. Cryptocurrencies, of course, are highly speculative, but nowadays they're essential in a balanced portfolio. And then there's cash, savings accounts, which yield little but provide a certain level of security. It's important to note that there are no good or bad asset classes. There are assets that react differently, depending on the economic cycle. And that's exactly where diversification comes in. Diversification is the anti-panic compass. It's what protects you when a market crashes. It's what keeps you from putting all your eggs in one basket. According to a Vanguard study, well-diversified portfolios can reduce the risk of capital loss by more than 40%, even during a crisis, while still maintaining good returns. So, as I often repeat, there are no risky investments, only risky strategies. The idea then is to diversify. Diversification is the only way to come out ahead. So you might ask, what about trading in all this? Well, trading, contrary to what people sometimes think, isn't an asset class. It's a management approach. In other words, you can trade, that is, buy and sell stocks, operate on the Forex, which is the currency market, cryptocurrencies, or indices. You'll be able to trade, but this specific way of managing an asset is played out over a short period, in the short term. And that's what makes all the difference compared to more traditional markets. So in your strategy, you could very well have 70% in long-term investments, ETFs, real estate, bonds, for example, 20% in dynamic or innovative projects, and maybe 10% in a tactical trading pocket entrusted to professionals to seize market opportunities. The secret is knowing where to put what and why. A concrete example, we're talking about the famous all-weather portfolios. I invite you to discover the work of Ray Dalio, who is a renowned asset manager and who designed what he calls the all-weather portfolio, suitable for all circumstances, for all seasons. It's a strategy designed to perform in any market conditions, whether we're talking about inflation, deflation, growth, or recession. The idea is to become, in a way, anti-fragile. And for that, a portfolio, of course, should include stocks, bonds, gold, commodities, and cryptocurrencies. In short, to put it simply, a bit of everything, but not just anything and not in any way. And that's where we need to rely on professionals. Why? Well, because we know we can't predict the future. So that's why you'll need to build a strategy that adapts no matter what the economic climate is like, in a way. Because the only thing we can be sure of is that the future will always be uncertain. And so you can do the same. That's the whole point of having a small active trading pocket integrated into an overall strategy and carefully managed. And the mistake to avoid, which many beginners make, is to see trading as a shortcut, a kind of lottery ticket that could make you rich quickly. And that's the best way to get burned. Trading isn't a game. It's a profession, a discipline, a strategy. And in your life as an investor, it can truly have its place, provided it is used intelligently and with discipline. So to sum up, remember that investing in the economy means capturing a share of the value created by the real world. There are several asset classes to combine in order to build your portfolio according to your profile. Diversification will always remain a golden rule. Trading is not an asset class, but rather a management style that should be handled with caution. In other words, it's better to delegate it to professionals, and in that way, it can become an additional performance lever in your portfolio. And precisely in the next key point, we'll zoom in on trading itself to try to discover what role it can play in our strategy. We will see that there are two very different ways to invest: to accompany or to speculate. So now that you understand the importance of investing in the economy, let's get closer to one of the performance drivers that makes it stand out: trading. But instead of talking about platforms, orders, or charts, I'd like to make a fundamental distinction between two approaches: investing to support companies or speculating to seize opportunities. In the first case, we're talking about long-term investment. You support the creation of value. This is investment in its noblest form. In fact, it's simple. You believe in a company, a sector, a technology, you decide to put in money, you stay invested, and you support its development. This is what's called the buy and hold approach, buying and holding. Warren Buffett is the perfect example of this. He buys companies he understands at reasonable prices and sometimes holds on to them for 10, 20, or even 30 years. Here's a concrete example. If you had invested 3,000 euros in Apple stock in 2008, today you would have more than 100,000 euros without having had to do anything. That's the effect of time combined with growth. It's not luck, it's long-term conviction. This approach requires patience, clarity, and above all, emotional detachment. You know why you're here. You're not sitting around waiting for every tweet from Elon Musk. And on that note, free yourself from the flood of posts, news, fake news, everything that fuels social media today. There are many ways to use influence as a tool to manipulate people's opinions. And often the criticism you see online is started by competitors or organizations that have a direct interest in making you doubt a particular stock. It has therefore become essential to seek out reliable sources of information for yourself and to maintain your own independent judgment. The buy and hold strategy is that of an investor who is committed to supporting the companies they select over the long term. And that's the complete opposite of speculation. Speculation is the second strategy. Speculating is a short-term, more reactive strategy. The principle is different. The goal is to take advantage of a moving market, often in the short term. And here, it doesn't matter who it is or what the company does. You're just riding trends. For example, it could be a stock that rises after an announcement, a currency that drops following a political decision, an index that breaks through a technical threshold, or a trend that accelerates in a tech stock. And in this case, you get in, get out, and do it all over again. It's fast, reactive, and potentially very profitable or very risky. In fact, traders use specific tools. These can be charting tools, what's called technical analysis, technical indicators, moving averages, Bollinger Bands, risk management tools like stop-loss orders to cut losses, or on the other hand, the ability to automatically take profits. Sometimes there are even algorithms or automated bots that ultimately allow you to manage large volumes and have computing power far beyond what a human can do. But be careful. Speculation is a bit like driving a rally car. It can be exhilarating, but as a result, it requires skill, experience, and discipline. Most individuals who start trading on their own lose money. And that's not an opinion, it's a statistical fact. In France, a study by the AMF on online brokers showed that 75 to 85% of individual traders were at a loss after 1 year of activity. Why? Because they didn't have the right method, lacked experience, or had no framework at all. So the real challenge is to intelligently combine these two approaches. The goal here isn't to say that one is good and the other is bad. In reality, both approaches are complementary. Long-term investing brings stability, steady progress, and optimized returns thanks to the principle of compound interest. Short-term investing adds momentum and tactical performance, but all of this only works if it's very, very well managed. In our earlier example, with a well-structured portfolio, the goal is for the trading portion, which might represent, say, 10% of the entire portfolio, to aim for a level of performance over time that gives a boost and helps offset the more modest returns of traditional investments. As a result, you'll have a balanced portfolio that can both go the distance and seize opportunities. So the right approach is to steer. When it comes to speculation or trading, the smart move is not to do everything yourself. So the idea is to entrust execution to those whose job it is. In fact, it's not very different from medicine. You can understand the basics of a surgical operation, but when it comes to making the incision, you'll let the surgeon do it. Trading is the same. You don't need to be a trader. You need to know what role trading plays in your overall plan and to whom you'll delegate it. And that's when the magic happens. Because at that point, you stop being an amateur just trying things out. You become a strategist who directs resources toward the right levers. And that's exactly how you recognize a smart investor. So, to recap the elements of this key, we're going to talk about long-term investing to support companies, work on growth, and build. And we're going to combine it with speculation to seize short-term opportunities. Both approaches have their place, but they don't play the same role. Trading, for its part, takes a tactical approach, provided you leave it to the experts. Here, you are the conductor, not the pianist or the percussionist. And precisely in this next and final key, we'll see how to manage all of this methodically. How do you move from a casual approach to running your financial life like a CEO? Because understanding is good, but managing with discipline is even better. Key number 5, managing yourself, getting advice, delegating, what is ultimately the right approach to achieve high performance. And yes, here we are. You've seen the major stages of the financial cycle. You've been able to assess where you stand on the path to your freedom. You've understood why investing in the real economy is fundamental. And you've discovered 2 main approaches: long-term investing or speculation. Now, there's one essential question left to ask. Who is going to take care of it? Is it me? Is it an advisor? Is it a professional manager? And this is where the 5th key comes into play. In reality, you could say there are 3 types of management. Ultimately, to manage your money, the first idea is to use self-management. I'm going to do everything myself, the do-it-yourself approach. You manage everything yourself. You open the accounts, you choose the assets, you follow the markets, you place the orders. This is the attitude of an enthusiast, someone who's curious, who wants to understand and control everything. There are advantages to this: total autonomy, limited fees, in-depth learning, sometimes even at your own expense, but it also has some serious drawbacks. It takes a lot of time. You'll spend a lot of time to get results. It requires real discipline, and there are potentially very, very costly mistakes. So this option will work if you have time, if you already have a solid educational background, a real passion for the markets, and I'd add, if you can afford to take some big hits. In other words, to lose money. Advice management is the second type of management. This is what we call the do-it-with-me approach. You are accompanied by a professional. In general, this could be a wealth management advisor, a broker, or an independent expert. They offer you options, but you remain the decision maker. But the advantage is that you benefit from a structured framework. Often here, you'll work on your strategy with a professional, and this happens when you want to invest. But afterwards, you'll find yourself more on your own over time. But the problem is that the markets are always moving. So what's important is to be able to benefit from ongoing support. So if you need to look for an advisor, pay attention to how they will support you over the long term. The advantages are personalized support, less stress, and more optimized strategies than if you were on your own. On the other hand, the drawbacks are that the quality will vary depending on the advisor you work with, and it can sometimes be expensive or biased due to conflicting commercial interests. And above all, there will be a need to adapt to changes in the markets over time. So even today, we could say that this option is suited for those who want to keep some control while avoiding the pitfalls of being completely on their own. There is a third option, fully delegated management, which we could call the done-for-you approach. Here, you completely delegate execution to professionals. You define an overall strategy, objectives, and the level of risk you're willing to take, and the manager or a trading team takes care of the rest. The advantages here, of course, are huge time savings, management by professionals, and potentially higher long-term performance. And the drawbacks might be, for some, a relative loss of control. But that's mostly just apparent because, in general, you'll have all the tools to manage things remotely and delegate this management. The other drawback is perhaps the need to carefully choose whom you turn to and whom you delegate to, because you shouldn't just hand over the keys to anyone. So this type of management is actually the closest to the entrepreneurial model. You don't do everything yourself. You're there to steer, make decisions, evaluate, and above all, you're going to delegate. In fact, I often say that managing your financial life is a bit like running a business. There's cash flow, investments, expenses, and a strategic vision. And in a company, a good CEO doesn't do everything himself. He hires experts, delegates to teams, and manages using indicators, KPIs. Why not do the same with your personal finances? It's not shirking responsibility, it's an act of governance. You are the CEO and you've entrusted a department to someone whose job it is. But be careful, delegating doesn't mean disappearing. It means setting a framework, defining objectives, monitoring indicators, and having regular check-ins. And I'll tell you something I often repeat. A good delegation plan has 2 ingredients: clarity, knowing where you want to go, and control. The tools that will allow you to set everything up. Of course, not obsessive control, but real strategic control. So trading, in this logic, is probably the field most suited to delegated management. Why? Well, because trading is technical, it's intense, there's a huge emotional component, and if you're alone facing those emotions, it can sometimes be difficult. It's time consuming. Mistakes can be very costly, whereas a professional trader will follow proven strategies, use powerful tools, manage risk methodically, and above all, act without emotion. He follows a process. So delegating this part to a professional manager is like entrusting your vehicle to a qualified driver. You stay in the cockpit, but he's the one holding the wheel at 300 kilometers per hour. You don't need to be the specialist in every lever. You just need to know how to orchestrate them. No need to be the trader, you just need to know which trader to entrust with this task. So, the most important question to ask yourself is, do I want to be the one who acts, or do I want to be the one who orchestrates? Delegating intelligently, once again, is not about shirking your responsibilities. It's about taking a step back and adopting a leadership mindset. That's why I encourage you to shift from being a consumer of financial investments to becoming the CEO of your financial life. It's with this perspective that trading will become one strategic building block among others. For example, this could be your performance portfolio, your portfolio that is managed, monitored, and integrated into an overall vision. And above all of this will serve your personal goals. So, to recap this key point, you have 3 ways to manage your money. On your own, by relying on an advisor, or by fully entrusting and delegating management to a trader. Delegating is not an admission of failure, but rather a strategic choice. Trading fits perfectly into a logic of delegation, and your role will be to steer, set the framework, and evaluate, but not necessarily to execute. So once again, the right approach is to be the conductor, not the technician. And now you find yourself with a whole set of keys. It's time to connect the dots to have a coherent long-term vision that will give you the big picture of where this could take you, and that's what we're going to do in the conclusion. We've reached the end of this session, and if you're still with me, it means you've understood something essential. All of this is not reserved for elites, it's not just for insiders. What you've just seen concerns you directly. Today, together, we've looked at 5 keys. The first, the cycle of financial life. Understanding how we move from work to saving, from saving to investing, and from investing to freedom, and above all, that time is your most powerful resource. Key 2. Security, independence, freedom. Where do you stand? It's not the same to aim for stability as it is to aim for growth. A good pilot knows their destination before starting the engine. Key number 3. Investing in the economy, a must. Because that's where wealth is created, and those who understand this no longer suffer from inflation. They turn it into opportunities. Key number 4, speculate, support. 2 ways to play a role in the markets. It's up to you to decide whether you're here to build, to catch quick moves, or both, but always with a method. And finally, key number 5, manage, get advice, or even fully delegate, because at some point you have to decide. Do I want to do everything myself? Do I want to steer things like a CEO? So there you have it. You now have a real framework for understanding. And that was my real goal with this course, to put you back in control. To sum it up in one sentence, you can't control the markets, but you can choose your stance towards them. And this stance is what allows you to bring order to your finances, to take a step back regarding your goals, to use the right tools in the right places, and above all, to enjoy trading as a true performance lever without being swept away by your emotions, by promises, or by hopes of profit. As you've seen throughout this session, trading is not an end in itself. It's a tool, a lever, a compartment that you can learn to integrate into a much broader financial strategy. And it can't be said enough, you don't have to do everything yourself. That's where modern platforms are game changers. Today, solutions like XTERA allow anyone to manage their investments like a pro, even without technical experience. You have access to powerful management tools, a true portfolio diversification approach, and fully delegated management in the hands of professionals. And above all, which is rare, the ability to withdraw your funds and your earnings at any time, with no lock-in period and therefore no stress. This type of solution is aimed at anyone who wants to take things to the next level, stop flying blind, stop letting their money sit idle, and start investing with method and peace of mind. Also, I want to thank the whole team for their commitment. It's valuable and rare to see a company take the time to educate its community, to seek to grow people's skills, and to develop everyone's discernment. Because as we know, education will always be the best passport to success. So once again, thank you for your attention, your curiosity, and your desire to learn. I hope this session has given you the keys, the reference points, and above all, the desire to go further. I wish you all the best on your journey as an informed investor, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon for another session. But until then, I'll hand things over to the amazing XTERA team. Thank you all.
Hello XTERA family, it's fantastic to be with you today, and wasn't that a truly wonderful and inspiring training session? Thank you so much, Dominique, for sharing your knowledge, skills, expertise and experience with us. As Daniel said in his introduction, the feedback from your first session was overwhelming, and I'm sure we're going to have a great deal more after what you've shared with us today. To summarise Dominique's session, he's helped all of us understand more about the financial life cycle, and if you haven't already read it, I'd highly recommend reading Robert Kiyosaki's excellent book, The Cashflow Quadrant, or reading it again if you have. He's helped us identify what stage we're at on our own path to financial freedom. He debunked a few myths about investing and highlighted the true value of contributing to the real economy. He talked about balancing short-term trading strategies with long-term investment approaches, and he talked about the different management options to encourage a professional mindset. That's one of being a financial pilot and not a gambler. Once again, thank you, Dominic. That really was very special. When I think about Dominique's session today and all of the other sessions we've had, one of the things they continue to highlight for me is the incredible depth and breadth of knowledge, skills and expertise that's required to become a successful trader. Each session has reinforced the fact that I simply don't have the time or the inclination, if I'm honest, to learn to do it for myself. What's more, I can't afford the many mistakes I would almost certainly make while I was learning. That's why here at XTERA, your growth matters. And as Daniel mentioned earlier, we're on a mission to become the most trusted and successful platform for millions of people to shape their financial future to success. When you consider how easy it is to access our platform, how we use our expertise to bring you a system that works for you 24/7, the fact that your money is always accessible, the amazing community we're building, our massive focus on transparency, including your total transparency tool where you'll soon be able to see the results of your own portfolio, and then combine all of that with the results we're consistently delivering for you month after month, it's clear that we are bringing that mission to life. But as Daniel reminded us earlier, that's the XTERA DNA. This is why we ask that you share XTERA and the consistent results you're getting with the people you care about most. Whilst we live in a truly abundant world, it seems to be human nature to be fearful about sharing. We worry that by doing so, our share is somehow diminished. But that isn't how XTERA works. Let me explain. I remember walking with my 5-year-old daughter along the cliff top at a local beach. This was almost 30 years ago. It was a cold and wet winter's day and we were well wrapped up. Now, we were having a great deal of fun and laughter. But Hannah commented how everyone we passed coming the other way looked so miserable, and she asked me why. I couldn't answer why. There are way too many possible reasons. But I believe a smile is one of the greatest gifts we can give. So I suggested that whenever someone approached, she should look them in the eyes, give them a great big smile, and see what happens. So that's what she did. You know what happened, don't you? Everyone, without exception, smiled back at her. Sharing her smile didn't diminish it at all. In fact, hers grew bigger and brighter as more and more people smiled back at her. XTERA works just like Hannah's smile did on that day. As you share it with others and they join our wonderful community, they get the exact same consistent results that you do month after month. It isn't about how many people are in the community or how much is invested. It's about how we pull together and apply the incredible depth and breadth of knowledge, skills and expertise of the entire XTERA team. At XTERA, your growth matters. And when we talk about your growth, we don't only mean you. We mean your loved ones, your friends, your family, and everyone you care about. Share what we're doing for you and the results you're getting with them. and let's grow your XTERA community for each and every one of us. Before we wrap things up, I'm thrilled to announce that our next XTERA Education session will take place on Sunday the 5th of October at 4 p.m. UK time. Mark your calendars now, you're going to want to be there. We'll be sharing more insights, more information and more expertise with you in our continuing drive for total transparency within the XTERA community. Thanks again for your time, your attention and your commitment to learning. On behalf of myself, Daniel, Dominique and the entire XTERA team, I wish you continued success and a fantastic day. We look forward to seeing you on the 5th of October. Bye for now.